Hi. We're now moving on to the description of vowels in terms of phonetic features. As April McMahon points out in her chapter on vowels that I hope you'll have read already or will be reading soon, we can't use the same phonological features to describe consonants and vowels. To build up to the full set of features that we need to describe the English vowels, we'll start with simpler systems, like the one shown here. About a fifth of the world's languages have this set of vowels, and Spanish is one of them. Here are the features that we use to describe these vowels. These features refer to tongue position. So, front distinguishes E from back U, A from back O. Height distinguishes E from A and U from O. And Ah, the lowest vowel in this 5-vowel system, is lower and also less front or back. It's central in its articulation. To see, in fact, how these vowels are distinguished in terms of their articulation, we can use the MRI recordings again. So I'll just go over to that. So here's a chart, and I'll be talking a little bit later in this lecture about the phonetic descriptors that are used in this case. But let's look at E. So this is a high front vowel.
E, EP, ET.
Tongue in E is high and front. I'll play it again and you can see that the articulation is up high and towards the front of the mouth.
E, EP, ET.
Oo, on the other hand,
Oo, oopoo, ootoo.
so it's pretty obvious that the tongue is back in the articulation of oo. Another thing that you can notice in the articulation as well is that in oo and o, the lips are rounded, and you should be able to see the rounding of the lips during the vowel. I'll play that again for you.
Oo, oopoo, ootoo.
E and oo contrast in tongue height with A, O, and ah. And so I'll play, to contrast oo's with another vowel that's relatively back, I'll play ah. Here's a back low rounded vowel for fun.
O, opo, oto.
So we should be able to see that the tongue is lower when this vowel is being articulated than it was for oo.
O, opo.
And then oo.
Ooh, oopoo, oot.
Moving on from the 5-vowel system, many languages, including English, divide up vowels at a particular height further with features that phonologists call tense and lax. So A and E are an example of two vowels that differ in what's called tenseness. A is tense, E is lax. O and A are two vowels that are distinguished by tenseness as well. So this inventory is the inventory of Italian. And once again, all the back vowels here are rounded. Now we can start to talk about English. Here's a partial inventory using the features we've already discussed. So English also has a distinction between high tense and high lax vowels, E and I, and also in the back vowels, U and Then we have A, O. In the low vowels in English, we have a distinction between the front A and the back A. Bat versus caught. And then for some speakers, there's the distinction between the mid A, and which is also rounded, and the low A. But as I've mentioned before, many speakers, including me, have no distinction between caught and caught. So once again, all the non-low back vowels are rounded, and tenseness is not distinctive in the low vowels. So when we're describing them, we don't mention whether they're tense or lax. So once again, in the discussion group, this will be for the third week discussion group. We'll do a description exercise, practicing describing vowels, saying the features in the following way. This is the standard order: height, then tenseness, and then backness. And again, I'd like you to make up 5 descriptions to quiz your partners with, and then test one another in whether you can come up with the transcription and the description. As I mentioned, there's a difference between the features that the phonologists typically use and phoneticians typically use. And we saw some examples of phoneticians' features in the MRI IPA chart. The difference between phonology and phonetics is controversial, but the basic way of seeing it is that phonology is primarily concerned with the sound systems of language. What sounds does a language have? Does it have E versus I? And what are the restrictions on how they combine? What are the restrictions on how consonants combine to form the onsets and codas of syllables? Do vowels get reduced in unstressed positions? Things like this. Phonetics, on the other hand, is primarily concerned with the physical characteristics of sound, looking at exactly how they are articulated and perceived and what their acoustic characteristics are. And we'll be looking a little bit at the acoustic characteristics of sounds using waveforms shortly. We just described the English vowels in terms of features that phonologists typically use. So the feature lax that we've been using for E, I, and so on also characterizes vowels that are banned from word final position. That is, it's useful for a phonological restriction on the shape of words. So B and be and b are all impossible words in English. Not only are there no words that have this shape, but one wouldn't invent one for a new product name. Whereas B, bay, and boo are all fine. Exception, unfortunately, is that aw is in fact a lax vowel. Phoneticians, on the other hand, usually talk about degrees of height and or articulatory closure. So we have this diagram from the reading, which is talking about degrees of height: 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4. Like the vowels are to a degree of height and a degree of frontness and backness. These cardinal vowels that are shown here are used for phonetic transcription when you're looking across languages. So these are kind of reference vowels, and you can say whether or not a vowel in a particular language you can say to what extent a vowel is close to one of the cardinal vowels or is exactly like it almost. I have a couple sound files here from a nice website that UCLA provides. The first one is Daniel Jones, who invented the concept of cardinal vowels, producing them.
E, 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 A, O, 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 U.
Now you should be noticing that these vowels don't sound very much like the English vowels. The A and the O are not English A and O, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. A more recent recording is of Peter Ladefoged, who is unfortunately also not alive any longer, but you'll hear that this recording sounds more recent.
E, E,
에, 아, 어, 오, 우, 우.
He's also American rather than British. I don't know if that affects how they produce the cardinal vowels, but it's perhaps relevant. So the difference between English A and O and the A and O in these in the cardinal vowels and in many languages is that the English vowels are diphthongized. So the more accurate transcription than what I've been giving so far is that A would be transcribed with an I at the end of it. So this is a change in articulation, and O would be transcribed with a change as well. Now these are relatively slight changes in the tongue position over the course of vowels, but we have other the things that usually get called diphthongs, which have a more dramatic change. So I is transcribed starting with the central ah, and then at the end it has I. So this is I goes from a low central vowel up to a high front vowel. Ow goes from that vowel to a high back vowel. Oi goes from something like aw up to e, and then o, which we talked about a little bit already, goes from o to u. Another vowel that we haven't discussed yet is schwa.